The point is, and it comes through if you read between the lines in Gray's correspondence, not so much his correspondence with the Colonial Office, but his correspondence with Johann Godeffroy and son, the agents who sent these the German prisoners out. Sir George Grey worked out that if the fathers, the men, the heads of the households were on average 40 years of age, how many teenage girls would they have? At least 500. Those girls would be settled in these legionnaire villages. The legionnaires would see these girls playing around, and what would they do? They would work hard, because they've got to make themselves marketable, because these are the only girls available. And there's only 500 for 2,000 soldiers. So it's going to be the survival of the fittest, the survival of the strongest, the survival of the hardest working. And so they will work really hard. That was Sir George Grey's plan, bringing out the peasant farmers. That would also help the Legion to show them, teach them how to farm. But it was mainly about the women, the teenagers. And the Colonial Office somehow didn't read, by the way, in this, why I know that's true, the teenage girls, is that a young Godeffroy responded saying, why then are we setting the maximum age at 45? Shouldn't we raise it to 50? Because if you go to 50, there'll be even more teenage girls sent out. And so the age was raised to 50 for the sake of the teenage girls. And not only that, but girls, I don't think teenage girls were due to any property. So George Grey did two things. If the girl was a teenager, okay, a boy, if he was a teenager, had to pay his own voyage as though he was an adult. A girl who was a teenager got her voyage half price. And she was also given 3 acres of land. She was treated as equal to a boy. So it was the girls who mattered here. And but the Colonial Office didn't buy this. They didn't really see that. They missed the point about the teenagers. The Colonial Secretary said he cannot see how having a bunch of children running around is going to do anything for the moral status of the Legion. And so they turned it down. And they sent out instead the Kennaway girls, 150 girls to become wives for 2,000 bachelors. Boggles the imagination. This is a stupid thing. And actually, very few of these girls married the Legion. They weren't that stupid. The other thing which has come to my attention, and I got very excited about this, is that you are aware, are you not, that when the peasants came out, so Sir George Grey organised the thing on his own back, and if you know your German history, you settled history well, you will know the Colonial Office got really angry about this. And they cut off the thing. They wrote to, the Colonial Secretary wrote to Godeffroy and said, it's got to be cancelled. Godeffroy said, we can't. Some of the peasants are already on board ship. The ships are already at sea. Others have already got the contract signed. Money is committed. We can't do it. And he said, we're going to be sued anyway if we try to do it. And so the Colonial Office paid him £5,000 to cancel all further voyages. You all know that, of course. But if you look at shipping lists, you will notice that the last of these 6 ships arrived in February 1859, and then the next ship arrived about 1860. And more ships came, more ships came. Why? The answer was that, and I think this was Sir George Grey getting the last laugh, was, you see, when he organised the peasant settlers, he did it legally. It wasn't just his idea. He put it through Cape Parliament. He got an active Parliament. So the peasant scheme was actually backed fully by the Cape colonial government. England could not stop it. It was impossible for them to stop it. And so when they paid Godeffroy £5,000, I'm convinced Godeffroy pocketed the £5,000 and carried on recruiting. Because that's what happened. They carried on recruiting. There's a document here in the museum. It's a translation, English translation. But I have no doubt that the dates and so on are all correct. Because it's a document signed 3 months after Godeffroy had been paid his £5,000. As a document, a prospectus for the Germans telling them of immigration to British Pretoria and so on. He carried on recruiting. Because this whole thing, as I said, it was George Gray's last laugh. They cannot stop. They did, of course, stop him personally, because he fell foul of the colonial office. They got very angry with him for basically doing his own thing, and also for organising a federation scheme, trying to bring the Transvaal Republic and Free State into a grand federation. A really good idea. And so they fired him. It also, of course, had to do with big politics, because we have rise and fall of governments. Who was Lord Stanley who cancelled the scheme? He was a Tory. What was Sir George Grey? He was a Liberal. So, therefore, just like the new guy, the Tories, I forget what's his name? No, Tories. Sorry? David Cameron hates Gordon Brown. He's going to bring him down. He hates anything he does. If Gordon Brown interviews himself in front of the English force in Iraq, Gordon Brown says he's trying to politicize the thing. If Gordon Brown doesn't photograph himself before the troops in Iraq, David Cameron says bad. He's destroying the morale of the troops and the thing. So it doesn't matter what he does, it's bad. This is what is going on in England at the time. The man who cancelled the scheme was the colonial secretary Baker. Tory, does come to power, destroy anything that Sir George Grey did, and so on. The man who, and then Sir George Grey was withdrawn in disgrace, and then the Tories fell from power, Liberals came back, and Sir George Grey found himself back in the camp. He was the blue-eyed boy again. It's politics, it's all politics. So this is what it's all about, people. This is my book. I'm hoping it's going to come to fruition soon. And you'll see there that there's a lot of emphasis on the Legion. Reason being that the Legion was given a bad deal in Dr. Stone's. And I'm trying to put that right. So, part 3, the German military settlements linked to the Kennaway girls. I give the Kennaway girls a totally new scheme. I've got something brand new in this, by the way. Those of you who are Kennaway descendants, I've got a whole chapter there on the wrecking of the Lady Kennaway.